The emperors of the Roman Empire do not always have the most wonderful of reputations, and sometimes this is the result of our sources engaging in propaganda. Some of our main sources for the Flavian dynasty, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, are an excellent example of this. There were active attempts to paint the civil war that took place after the death of Nero in the year 69, and then the reign of Nero himself, in a less than happy light. And the sources written during the reigns of Nerva and Trajan about the Flavian dynasty which had come to power during that civil war, especially the writings of Tacitus and Cassius Dio, whose careers began under Domitian and then rose to prominence under Nerva and Trajan, are sometimes fairly hostile, so they must be read with care. Despite the bad press, however, there is some truth to what was written about this emperor in later sources. During his reign, he attempted to concentrate power, and some historians have proposed that he attempted to sideline the Senate and establish an ancient equivalent of a cult of personality, which of course would have put him into conflict with the aristocracy of Rome. Domitian and the senators of Rome very much did not like each other. Under his reign, several of them were executed, and at one point, to drive home exactly how much power he wielded, Cassius Dio tells us that he, apparently, hosted a dinner party where all of the decoration was black, with the theme being death. All of the chairs were shaped like tombstones with the senators' names inscribed on them, and the conversation essentially just revolved around death and dying. In other words, if this did indeed happen, the point may very well have been to emphasize that the emperor held the power of life and death over the senators. After the party, they were all expecting murderers to show up at their respective doors. Of course, our primary sources tell us that this was a funeral banquet held in honor of the Roman soldiers who had died fighting a war in Dacia, and not an attempt to terrorize senators, but some modern professionals have called this into question. Domitian also, apparently, disliked one particular senator so much that he forced the man to fight his pet lion. As the story goes, Antonius, the governor of Germania Superior, revolted in 89. Although his personal papers were all burned, the emperor apparently got word that despite the documents which would have confirmed or denied this no longer existing, the rebellion was part of a conspiracy against him. So, naturally, Domitian put to death many members of the Roman Senate. Others had charges brought against them not relating to this particular rebellion, but to conspiracy in general, and was summarily put to death. But for one senator in particular, Domitian had a particularly nasty execution in mind. Glabrio was a senator who served as consul in the year 91 alongside Trajan. The latter would take the throne in 98, but the former would not be so lucky. He came from a long line of consuls, but that ancestry is not what he was known for. He was, instead, known for being fairly strong and for fighting as a gladiator, especially against animals. This apparently caused Domitian some degree of jealousy, at least according to Cassius Dio. So, he was charged with conspiracy. For what, we don't know, but some historians have suggested that it was for being a Christian. And he was summoned to Domitian's estate and tasked with fighting and killing a lion. Apparently, it was the emperor's pet. Glabrio, much to Domitian's consternation, successfully hunted, fought, and killed said lion, apparently without coming to any harm himself. The emperor's response, then, was to simply execute the senator anyway, his elaborate plan having failed. 5 years later, there was an actual conspiracy against the emperor, and he was assassinated on September 18th of the year 96. His memory was subsequently damned, and he would go down in Roman history as one of the more paranoid and cruel emperors, whose political victims numbered in the dozens, not least among them being the unfortunate Glabrio. However, in the modern era, historians have begun to reassess his reign. But no matter the specific policies and the success or failure of those courses of action, condemning a man to die by fighting a lion, and then executing him anyway once he slew the beast, certainly fits the bill of cruel and unusual punishment, even for the ancient Romans.